Welcome to Lesson 11 of the Dynamic WordPress course for beginners. In our previous lesson, we talked about dynamic conditions and how you can use this to determine what shows up in the front end and when. Now, in this lesson, we're going to be talking about forms. We'll talk about why you need forms on your WordPress website and how you can use forms to collect user input. But first, we're going to define forms. What are forms? Forms on your WordPress website are simply tools that can help you to collect user input from a user. How you choose to use such user inputs is entirely dependent on you. So, let's see how we can apply that in this basic introduction to forms. If we come back to our WordPress website, we take note that when we were first discussing building out our homepage, we talked about the fact that there could be a section down here as a contact me section, inside of which a person can have a form and can use such form to collect data from any user on the website. So let me show you just how to fill up this space and build out a form where the form should be. When you're creating a contact me form, what kind of information would you need to collect from a user? You may want to collect things like an email, a name of the person, or maybe the contact reason and even the message the person has to leave you, right? Whatever such information you want to cover, you definitely can do that with forms. I took the liberty to install the JetFormBuilder plugin, but you know how to install the JetFormBuilder plugin. As you can see here, it's a free plugin. You can make use of that by simply going inside of plugins, searching for JetFormBuilder, as you can see here, and installing this. You know how to do this stuff, right? Good. Now, come inside of JetFormBuilder and we want to create our first form. Take note that we have add new form, in which case we're going to add all of the forms manually. We also have import from JSON, in which case we can import an already exported form file, right? And then we have generate with AI, and this is some of the nice stuff. We can just use prompts to specify what kind of form we want to build out, and the AI is going to go and build out all of those form fields for us. Pretty easy, right? We also have import from HTML, in which case you can just go on anybody's website whatsoever, copy their form and bring it inside of here. But we're not going to talk about all of these use cases today. Let's focus on the basics. Let's talk about adding a form by simply clicking on add new form. Now, remember, we want to build out a contact form here, so we can give it a title such as contact me form. Something like that is totally fine, right? Now, inside of here, you have a number of patterns to choose from. This is not AI assisted, but it could be if you click on generate AI. You have the opportunity to make use of AI. But here, you have a number of form field templates or patterns that you can very easily just select from, like contact form, feedback form, newsletter sign-up form, insert post form. And of course, this is great because you can have a form in the front end through which a user can create a post in the back end. That's excellent, right? You also have a register user template, you have a PayPal donation template, and stuff like that. You have some of these templates locked behind the Pro features, but this is of course if you want to make use of the Pro features. And if you already made the smart choice of buying the lifetime license of Crocoblock, then this form builder is already included as part of that. Let us keep things simple for now by simply clicking on Start from Scratch. And when we click on Start from Scratch, it just gives us a bunch of fields that we can very easily make use of. But for us to actually start from scratch, let's delete all of these form fields. I don't want to have to explain each of them to you until I absolutely have to. So let's remove all of the form fields. And we totally have no form fields right now on the site. So let us start building it out. What kind of fields would you need? What kind of data would you need to collect? You may need to collect data such as the name of a person. So let's just add a form field for name. Let's come inside of the plus icon at the top here and let us search for name. Oops, we don't have any field called name here. We only have author name, text field. Where is name? Well, the fact is you don't have a field for name. You only have a field called text field right here, which you can find by either searching for text field or you can find it just as we searched for it. Either way, just find the text field. The text field, as you can see right here, is just a field that enables you to add text in one line. So let's just add that text field and we want to call this name. Okay, that's totally fine. Now, when we click out of it, we see the key at the top here changes to name. We can, of course, adjust the key if we want to and type whatever we want to inside of there. Also, the form field key or name, as you can see on the right-hand side, called form field name right here, is adjustable both at the top here and also at the right. If you choose to, you can adjust this back to a reasonable key or form field name. So let's just call that name, okay? And that's fine. Inside of description, if we want to, we can add something like enter your name here. But I believe a person who sees name understands that it's his name and not yours he's supposed to enter. So we don't need to add a description inside of there. I'm just going to remove that and let's create the next form field. The next form field is an email form field. So let's try searching for email. Will we find email? Nope, we're not going to find any form field called email. We have although text field, which we can still use. We can use a text field to also handle collecting of emails. So in this case, we're going to say email, and we see the key here changes to email. On the right hand side here, we see the field type for any text field can have multiple field types like text, email, URL, telephone, and password. And why do you need to select what the field type is? Because right now, of course, if you just say you need the person's email here, the person definitely can add their email. But what if they don't add such email correctly? You need some sort of browser validation. The person's browser will be able to tell him, hey, you're not adding the right email. The email doesn't appear to be formatted correctly. Maybe you don't have an @ inside of that email. So what kind of email doesn't have an @ Something like that. Okay, so whatever it is, you ensure that the field type matches what you need to collect. So in this case, since we want to collect email, we can select the field type of email, and that's okay. If we want to use the autocomplete function, we can definitely use that. If we turn that on, that will use the person's previous browser operations or sessions to be able to tell, hey, it looks like you've added an email sometime in the past. So do you want to add that same email right here? That's exactly what this autocomplete function does. Okay. So in this case, we can keep it on if we want to, or we can keep it off. Okay. It's your choice. In this case, let's just keep it on. Now, you have down here the minimum or maximum length of symbols, and that just specifies how long you want that email to be or how short you want it to be. And that's definitely what it is there. So if you type in a maximum length of, let's say 20, it just checks, how many characters are inside of what the person typed in and ensures it's not more than 20. We don't know how long a person's email is supposed to be, so we don't need to select a maximum or minimum length. In this case, down here, we have a validation type inside of here. We're not going to cover this today because this is bordering on intermediate to advanced concepts. All right. We have an input max, which is also bordering on intermediate to advanced concepts. So we're not going to talk about this right now. By the way, we just need to build a simple contact form. All right. So let's go to the very last field. We can, if we want to, click on the plus icon right here, but we can also just click on space just below and come with our / and begin to type in the form field name. And in this case, we want to search for a text area, which is going to have our message. And a text area field just simply collects multiple lines of data, right? In this case, I want to select here message. I want to call this message, and that should be fine. If you look on the right-hand side here, you also can select a minimum or a maximum if you so desire, the length of which will be defined in both of these fields. Okay. Now, once a person has finished filling in this form, you want to be able to have a button that a person can click on that says, hey, I'm done. Now you can send all of my data to your email or to wherever you want this sent to. How do you decide that? You do that using something called an action button. I'm just going to click on an empty space here and get action button. And you want to click on action button. Now, you see by default, it says here submit. And this is usually what forms say by default. So if you want to, you can select here the field label to say maybe something like send me a message. So the person knows explicitly that clicking this button is going to send them the message. But a question may be on your mind. What if a person decides that they want to send whatever is inside of this form without filling any data in whatsoever? Well, they can do that. Technically, they can. But how do you ensure that some of these fields are compulsorily filled in? You can do that very simply using this field right here. You can, of course, select any field and just click on this icon that says make this field required. When you click on it, this field is now required. And you can tell that it's required by this asterisk just beside it. So let's say you need, most importantly, the email and the message. You can make this not required by simply clicking to toggle that off. Come inside of email, make that required. Come inside of message, make that required. So a person absolutely has to add their email and the message in order to submit this form. If they do not add the email and the message, then they cannot submit the form. But I mean, do whatever you feel is important to you. In my case, all of these fields are required, so I'm just going to select and make that required too. Now, once you're done with this, all you need to do is come back inside of JetForm right here by clicking on it from the top. Select the post submit action, which is going to really specify where you need to send this data to. In my own case, I need to send the admin of this website an email, and I also need to store whatever data is filled in through this form somewhere in the back end. So we need 2 post submit actions for that. Sometimes you hear me say post submit actions, sometimes you hear me say form submit actions, but I'm referring technically to the exact same thing. Now let's click on new action. And in this case, I want to select first of all the save form record action, which you see down here. Forget about all of the rest of these other form submit actions or post submit actions. These post submit actions are bordering on intermediate to advanced concepts. Let's keep things simple for now. Let's click on save form record, and in the first field here, it asked me if I want to collect the person's IP address. If you want to do that, you can toggle that on. In my own case, I don't want to do that. I don't need to collect the person's IP address, but I mean, do whatever is necessary in your own situation. Now, in the second part here, it asks us, do you want to keep this form field's data, whatever is sent inside of this form? Do you want to keep it even though the person who is filling out these fields has not yet passed the spam protection filters? Of course, you can add some spam protection inside of your form that says, hey, if this person looks and feels like a robot and is not really a real person, then I don't need such data. In that case, you want to keep this toggled off. But if you need to collect the data anyway, whether or not the person passes through the spam protection filters, then you can toggle that on. Okay? Now you have the last part here that says that you can track the user journey and save it to the form submission. And this is an excellent new feature of JetFormBuilder. You can make use of this to track the user's movement around the website to know, hey, this person checked out that project and checked out that project and that project before he decided to submit this form. So great. Now I know that the person is interested in these 3 projects, so I know where to start from. You know, something like that. If you want to activate that, go to settings. Just click on settings, and inside of here where you have JetFormBuilder settings, you can enable user journey tracking. That's entirely your choice. In my case, let's keep things simple and not enable that for now. We can click on update right here, and let's create the second post submit action. The second post submit action, the entire reason for it is to send an email. The email which will be sent by the email provider attached to this website. Now, keep in mind that there is a complicated aspect called emails, and I wouldn't use this video to explain the technicality behind emails because that's a very, very deep pit, right? But the point is simply this, that when you build a website such as this, sometimes you need something called an SMTP or Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. And what it simply does is connect your website to an email provider such as Gmail, Outlook, or maybe another email provider that you may know about, and connects it in such a way that when an action demands the sending of an email on a person's website, such as this, then it tells the email provider, hey, you know what? I have name, email, message, and I need to send these 3 things to a person's email. Here's the person's email, do that. Now that email provider takes care of it. Usually, the web host that you make use of takes care of your email sending processes. Sometimes they demand that you connect that email sending aspect of the web host to an email provider of your choice. In any case, it's good to contact your web host. In our case, we have our web hosting service set up by ourselves using local WP, right? You remember that? So we can switch over to the local WP and come inside of tools and just open Mailpit. Mailpit is a way to capture all of the emails that are expected to be sent out from your WordPress website. And in this case, we can very easily tell that, hey, an email was supposed to be sent out. This is the email that was supposed to be sent out and to where. So let's open up Mailpit and we have it right here. We see we have no messages right inside of our inbox. So we can very easily make use of it. This is our local email provider and email service. Let's see how things work. If we come back inside of the form right now, let's add a new action. The new action is going to say send an email, and that's it right there. We can click on send email. It's going to ask us, so where are you sending this email to? We want to say, hey, I want to send this email to the admin email, the email of the admin on this website. If I want to do that, I absolutely can do that. So let me select here admin email. And then it's going to ask us, do you want to copy or blind copy anybody? If we want to do that, we can toggle this on and we can select the email address to copy or blind copy. As was in the case of mail to, we have three options here, whether it's to send it to an email from a form submitted field, or we want to select a custom email, in which case we can manually type in the email we want to send this email to. The same applies to the copy and blind copy options right here. Do that if you so desire. But we can toggle this off right now, come to reply to, and we can select the email that will automatically be configured as the reply to email address. And what that simply means is that once you click on reply inside of your email provider, maybe Gmail or Outlook or whatever, once you click on reply, the email that is pre-filled for you to reply to is what you select here. In my own case right now, I want to say that whatever the user selects as their own email address, I want to be able to use that as the reply to. So in this case, I'm going to select email from submitted form field. It's going to ask us which form field are you talking about. I'm going to select the form field here. The form field is called email. Simple as that. Great. That's it. We can scroll down here to where we have subject and we can type the subject of the email. In my own case, I want to say new message from whose name is it? Do you want to say Michelle? You want to say Janet, or you want to say Mike or John or whoever? You really don't know who is going to submit this form. So you need to be able to make use of a placeholder right here. So new message from who? So we're going to use a placeholder called a macro. And to do that, we're going to click on this range icon right here. And we want to select name. So whatever is the person's form field name, we're going to get new message from that person, right? Excellent. Now in from name, we're simply here selecting what the sender of the email's name is. So who is this email coming from? Now, that is usually decided by the email provider. As I discussed with you, the connection to that email provider, it's usually decided by them what the name and that email address is supposed to be. The from email address is supposed to be. So if you want to, you can type in this if the email provider will allow you to manually specify this. But usually that's predefined inside of the email provider when you set up your SMTP settings. All right. Now, when you come to from name, you can type in a name, let's say Tobi Salami, or let's say fiction, because that's the name of the website. And usually the from name here should be the name of the website. And inside of from email address, in this case, I don't want to select anything. I want the from email to respect whatever is configured as the from email from my email provider. All right. Now, inside of content type, it's going to ask, do you want it in plain text or do you want it in HTML? And HTML simply just means that it's going to allow you to use tags such as H1 to H6. If you remember, we talked about that. So you can use H1 to H6 right here, or you can just type in plain text, right? I want to type in plain text, so I want to do that. Inside of content, I can say, hey, you just received a message from, and whatever the name of the person is, I'm going to pre-fill that here using the macro of name, and I'm going to say they said and said what. Down here, I'm going to type in the message by just simply pre-filling that using the macro for message. And once I'm done with that, I'm simply done. So you received the message from name, they said this. And for the email, it's already inside of the reply to, right? Does that make sense? Excellent. The next thing we want to do is probably select an attachment, but in this case, this doesn't really matter. A simple email attachment will only work if you already have a media field selected inside of here. So if you have a media form field that can collect stuff like a PDF or maybe an image or stuff like that, you can select that as an attachment, in which case it's going to send out that email and have whatever is inside of that media field as an attachment to that email. And once you're done with that, that's pretty much done. Now we can click on Update. We have things set up correctly for ourselves right now. If we want to, we can close the Post Submit Action option right here, and we can see there are a ton of other settings right here. For example, if you come down here to General Message Settings, you can select what you want as a message that will be shown to whoever fills in this form. You don't want it to just say form submitted successfully or form successfully submitted. You want it instead to say something like, hey, I got your message. I will respond to you in a bit. Now, there are other settings inside of here. For example, what message do you want to show if the submission fails? What do you want to show if there is a validation error? There is also the captcha validation error message, what you want to show to the person if the person enters an invalid email, stuff like that. If there's a required field that's empty, all of these messages, you can basically select a custom message for every single one of them. You also have the ability to preset all of the options, but we're not going to talk about that in this simple introduction because that's bordering also on intermediate to advanced. Inside of captcha settings, you can select a captcha provider such as Recaptcha 3, HCaptcha, Turnstile, which is by Cloudflare, and Friendly Captcha. Now, you can use any of these options to be able to further protect your form and ensure that your form only goes through when this provider, whoever is the captcha provider, has verified that whoever wants to submit that form is not a bot. Does that make sense? Great. You can use any of them if you so desire. But for now, we want to keep things simple. Inside of validation, I can select the enable form safety right now, which is going to protect this form using the default provisions inside of WordPress. Now, the other two options here further allow you to protect your form by ensuring that the form is actually being submitted by a user that actually did visit your website. And enabling this CSRF protection, which really does mean a cross-site request forgery protection, really just prevents a person from submitting this form unless the person is actually physically on your website. So whatever form information is sent is only valid once the person is actually on your website. This is just an additional protection. Honeypot is something very similar. It adds basically a small hidden field inside of the form, and if we have a bot coming on the website to fill out that form, the bot doesn't know what form is hidden and what form is actually being visible, and so it just goes ahead and fills in that form field. And when it does fill in that form field, which a user usually cannot see, then the form knows, hey, that must be a bot, because how did you see that? How did you fill in the form field that is not shown to regular users, right? So that's basically how this form field validation works here. You also have some advanced validation message options here. If you want to switch to advanced, you can then, edit the validation messages right here. But of course, we're not going to talk about that right now. Up here, you have form settings, in which case you can select the field layout, whether you want it in column or you want it in row or you want it by default. You can also select what the required mark is. This required mark is currently by default an asterisk, which you can see right here, but you can change this if you want to something else. In my case, I just want to leave it as that. You can select the HTML tag for the field label. In this case, I want to select label for the label tag, and that usually is the case. Inside of the markup type, do I want field set or do I want div? This is basically bordering an intermediate to advanced, but just keep it as div, right? When in doubt, just leave the default options, all right? Now inside of submit type, you can select if you want the page to reload or you want to submit this form and, the page doesn't reload. It just gives a feedback message without reloading the page. If you wanted to do that, you select Ajax. So Ajax will not reload. Page reload will reload the entire page. In my case, I want to keep it as Ajax. You can also, if you want to, select and change whatever you set inside of here when we're styling this form within Elementor. But for now, let's just keep it as this. Okay, now this next option here just simply asks you if you want to enable the form pages progress, which is gonna just add a progress bar somewhere at the top or the bottom, depending on where you want it to be, if this form is broken into multiple pages or multiple steps, right? So a person can click to go to the next step and the next step and the next step, and this is where you enable the form progress. Okay, let's select the last option here, which is to clear data on success submits. Then that simply means once a person has finished submitting the form, do you want to clear all of the data from it? So if you want that, you can toggle that on. In my case, I want to toggle that on, and that's good. And this way, a person will know that the data that they submitted inside of the form has gone to where it should go. Let's come up here to limit form responses. You can use the unlimited lifetime license that you already have of Crocoblock, or if you want to, you can buy the JetFormBuilder plugin as a standalone plugin. This is entirely your choice. We can close this out. We can come to form schedule, and this also is locked behind that. But basically what these two do for the form schedule, it just specifies a time period within which a person will be able to submit the form. For the limit form responses, it collects data only as many times as you want them to. Okay? Now I'm going to leave those two. We're keeping things simple here. Let's come back to post submit actions. We have this all covered. Now let's click on publish. And now when we publish our form, we have a new contact me form ready to go. And how do we make use of this form right now on a page that we want to make use of the form? It's pretty simple. We come back to the front end right here and we edit this with Elementor, because we remember this is where we want to put that form. So we're going to come inside of the editor right now. We want to come down there to where we have this text editor widgets. Let's just scroll all the way down, come to this. We want to remove that. And now, just below the contact me heading right here, I want to add my form. So we're going to click on plus here and search and get JetForm, the widget right inside of here. So once we paste that, it says, which form do you want to show? I'm going to say we want to choose the form contact me form. Keep in mind though that Elementor has a form builder which is part of Elementor, and if you try to get that by just searching for form and you want to get form, you see this is locked behind a pro subscription. But again, Crocoblock to the rescue. We have JetFormBuilder. It's a completely free plugin that you can definitely make use of, except you want the pro features, which is locked behind the lifetime license or a standalone license for JetFormBuilder if you so desire. Okay? Now let's just select the form which you already created, and we've dragged that inside of here. And you can see right now you have the name, the email, and the message fields. If you click on email, you see right now it just shows you a number of emails already. And why is it showing you that? Because we toggled on that option right here inside of the back end. Once we select email, you remember this option right here? We selected this option to autocomplete, so it knows that it can very easily select for you all of your previous emails which are filled inside of the website, and a person, if they so desire, can just click on the email pre-filled from their browser and send that form. Does that make sense? Excellent. So now let's talk about how we can style this form, because right now it doesn't look good, especially this button which says send me a message. It really doesn't look good. So we can style this. And how do we do that? Very easily. We come inside of here. Let me first of all remind you of the form settings which we already have here. You remember that for the submit type we selected Ajax, right? And we can specifically, if we want to, change this to page reload, or we can keep it at default. And by default, it's just going to use the form settings. And inside of the form settings, what did we specify? We specified that this should actually submit without reloading the page, right? So it's going to respect that when you select default. But for now, it's fine. You can, if you want to change the required mark to something else, you can change the label HTML tag. All of these settings which you saw inside of your form, whatever you change it to right now is going to override what you did inside of your JetFormBuilder settings, okay? We were talking about styling, so let's focus. Let's come inside of style. Inside of style, we can specify the gap. As you can see right here, we can specify the gap after, and if we specify that, it just specifies the gap between those form fields. But for now, let's keep things simple. We're going to take that off. Once you're done selecting what should be the form row settings, you can come to label, and if you want to, you can begin to select what the margin should be of this label if you so desire. In my own case, maybe I can just take off this, come inside of here to rem, and maybe I want to give the bottom margin of this label, each of these labels, to let's say 1 rem, something like this, or maybe 0.5. 0.5 should be fine. If we type in 0.5, that should be fine. Okay, so we just give that small gap between this. If we want to, we can also select typography settings. We can select the color. We can select the background color of the label. We can select pretty much a lot of stuff here. But we want to keep things very, very simple. As you can see, you can select almost every area here. You have description, you have checkbox or radio fields. If you have those fields inside of your form, you have input fields, the general input field settings right here, in which case you can select a background color for your input fields. In my own case, maybe I want to select this as my background color. It's a little too harsh right now, so we can reduce the opacity of this. Something like this should be all right. I can come down here if I want to select a border type, and I want to keep that border as a solid border and just increase the border width to like 2. Something like this should be fine. I can't change what the border color should be, so if I want to, I can come inside of here and probably just select this other color, and that's a little too light, so let's just select a different color, a color such as this, and this looks okay. Well, it's nothing too fancy, but it's all right. Now we can, if we want to adjust the color for our button, if we so desire, we can come down, we can close out the input fields, we can scroll down, we have the submit button option here. Now what I need you to do is go through all of the different form field types, which you can see pretty much inside of here, and style them, see how things will be looking if you style a specific form field in a different way. But in my case right now, I want to come to the submit field right now. And inside of here, I want to specify the alignment. You can see the alignment here. You can align to the start. You can align to the end, in which case it goes right here, inside of here. Or you can stretch this to full width, something like this. In which case, well, that's okay. But we can make the button alignment to center so that the text is dead in the center. This is okay. Now, if we want to, we can also specify the padding. In this case, I want to specify M, and I want to say maybe 1M, and that's okay. It's all right. Now, what should the button color be? That's the submit button. What should the background color be? I can come here, and if I want to, I can specify this as the background color. What should the border color be? What should the border size be? In this case, I want to remove the border size completely so that there is no border at all. Let's just for now click on publish, come to the front end. Let's see how things are looking. Let's refresh and see what we have now. And this is pretty much what we have. We have name, email, message, and the submit button. But we also need a hover action and some space between this and the bottom of the form right here. So we definitely can do that. For this, we just want to select the container and we want to add some gap at the bottom. So let's come inside of advanced and let's try to add some gap to the bottom of that contact section. So we're going to come to padding, come to rem and unlink this. And we want to give this a padding bottom of probably, let's say 4 rem. Something like this is okay. It gives it a very nice gap. Now for this, I can, if I want to, select a hover state for this submit button because I wanted to be able to probably change its color to something else so a person knows that he's actually hovering over that. So let's come inside of style, come down here to submit, and we can scroll down here to hover. We can select hover under submit, and the background color when we hover over it should be, let's say, accent. So we hover, it looks like this. That's okay. Now, where we have the message, if we want to, we can come down here. Let's close submit. We can come down to messages and we can see, hey, I got your message, which is going to show to a person who is trying to submit this form. We can definitely select a success message style right here. So what do we want the padding to be? In my own case, I want to leave it as that. The margin is fine. What I want to change is this border. I don't need this border around this, so I'm just going to remove this border. I'm going to select none. Now, what should the color be? Let's say that we want to adjust the background color and maybe select a background color such as this. So it's a nice looking color. Let's select the actual color of the text by selecting color and just come here and probably select this. And this is how it will look if we've gotten the person's message. I think this is okay. If you ask me, I think it's absolutely okay. Now for the submit field, we want to do something similar. Come to error message right here. We want to remove the border, come to none so that there's no border around it. Come to the background color right here. We want to probably give it this kind of background color or maybe a red background color. We just want to adjust the opacity just a little bit. Something like this is fine. And here on the color, I think this color is totally okay. If we want to, we can select this color as the error color. Okay, now this looks okay for when the form has successfully submitted, and this looks okay for when the form has failed a submission. I can make one last tweak to this. If I so desire, I can come back to field, input fields, come down here, and I want to change what the border radius is. And right here, I can select rem for this and probably select 0.5, something like that. Okay, so this is good. We can also do the same thing for the button. We can come down here to submit, and for the button, let's also select the border radius. We're going to select here the border radius of rem, and we also want to select here 0.5. Okay, so that's good. Let's do the same thing for the messages. We can do it very, very quickly. Let's make this work. We'll come inside of here to border radius, and we can select rem right here, and we also want to keep it linked and select 0.5 and put a point in the middle. That's okay. Let's do the same thing finally for the error message right here. We want to keep this to rem and come inside of here and select 0.5. Okay, now all of this is nice, roundish, and beautiful. I think this form looks okay. If you ask me, I think it looks absolutely beautiful. We can click on publish right now. After, of course, we've clicked on publish, and let's see how things are looking. This is looking absolutely beautiful. Now let's just try to submit the form. Let's say my name is Tobi Salami, and what's my email? My email is me@tobisalami.com, which of course it's already pre-filling for me, so I want to select that right there. And where we have message, I want to say, hey, I was just checking on you. Okay. Now that's great. I can click on send me a message. And when I click on that, it says, hey, I got your message. I will respond to you in a bit. We also see all of the items field inside of this form is already removed from the form. So a person knows that the message has gone through. But to where? We can come inside of MailPit, inside of here, which catches all of the messages that are supposed to be sent out from this website. And we can see here the name from fiction, just as we specified inside of our form. And when we click on this, you see new message from Tobi Salami, which is automatically pre-filled by virtue of what I added inside of name. You also see here that it says, hey, you just received the message from Tobi Salami. They said, and you have the message I specified inside of the form. Hey, I was checking in you. You see here, it says the reply to is me@tobisalami.com, meaning that when I click on reply to this particular email, I'm also going to be automatically replying to my email address. Why is the to email also the same? It's because coincidentally, the email of the admin is also me@tobisalami.com. Now, I want to cover a very specific use case, and this use case is important for when you want to collect data that you don't want the user to see. And let me show you how we can do that and how we can apply that specifically to our projects inside of our website. Now let's just come inside of our website and let's just go to, let's say, a project called Appnish as an example. Let's select Appnish, and what we want to do right now is edit the project template, the template for any of the projects on our WordPress website. Let us edit that. And why? Because we want to collect data regarding what project a person was viewing when they submitted a form. So let's say we want to do that and we just want to come to edit with Jet plugins and select this project single template right here. Let's just edit that, okay? Now, right here inside of the project page, we can see we have some space here that we can add maybe a form to help the person submit a form and ask about this particular project, or just send us a message in general. We may, if we want to, just collect the name of that project. So let's assume that that's what we built this form for. Let's come inside of here and let's say we want to add that right inside of here. So let's just duplicate this heading and bring that heading down here and call that heading something like contact us or contact me or whatever. Let's say contact me. That's fine. Now, just below contact me, let's say I want to add this particular form right there. I can copy the form and I can bring it right inside of here by just simply pasting it. Now, what I have here is name, email, message, again, just the way we had it previously, right? Let's click on publish and let's go back to the projects page and let's just refresh any of the projects on our website. We have Appnish right here, we have contact me, and we have, the form, the same form that we had previously, right? Now, what happens if we want to collect from the form fields the name of the project on which the person was when they submitted the form? We can very easily modify our form. Maybe we want to even duplicate this form just for that purpose only. But in this case, let's assume we're using the exact same form. Now, how can we collect the name of the project that the person was viewing when they submitted the form? It's simple. Let's do that. Inside of here, we can add what is known as a hidden field. A hidden field is never shown to a user unless the user, of course, inspects the code that's rendered in the front end. If the person comes in the front end and right clicks and clicks on inspect, they can find what is inside of the hidden field. So this is basically hidden from display view for the user. The user cannot see it unless they inspect the code, right? Anyways, you can collect some information as part of the hidden field and you can send that inside of your form. So let me show you that. Inside of here, you want to give the hidden field a name. Let's just call this project being viewed. And as you can see, I separated all of the words here with an underscore. I can also separate that with a dash. It's my choice, but just keep it as one single expression. Okay. Now, it's going to ask, do you want to render this in HTML? In other words, do you want this person to be able to click on inspect and view that inside of the code? Well, if you want that, you can absolutely do that. But if you don't want that to happen, you can toggle off render in HTML, in which case the person does not even know that some information is collected inside of this hidden field. In my own case, I like to leave it as render in HTML. It really doesn't matter when you're collecting an insensitive information, such as just the project title, right? Now, it also asks, do you want to return the raw value? This part we're not going to talk about as it is bordering on intermediate to advanced, okay? Let's just focus on the important part. Inside of field value right here, I want to come inside of here and select any of the options. It's asking us what kind of data do you want to collect? You can collect things like the current post ID, which is the post ID of that particular project. You can also collect the post title, which in this case, you guessed it right, is the project title, right? The title of that particular post or post type called a project, right? You can collect that. You can also collect the current page URL. You can collect the current post type. You can also collect the current post meta, in which case you want to select what meta field out of that current post you're viewing you want to collect. You can collect pretty much a lot of things. Anything that you can think about, you really can collect here. Almost any single thing. But in our own case right now, we want to collect the post title, which will also be the project title. So now inside of my JetForm settings, I can come inside of the send email action right here. And I want to say inside of my email right now that they were viewing, and I want to inside of here use the macro option and select projects being viewed. And this way, the information I am dynamically collecting here depends on the context of the project and knows, oh, hey, I'm inside of Appnish right now. So I'm going to collect the name Appnish and I'm going to put it inside of this mail and send it to the admin of this website. And this is absolutely nice. Just think about the various ways that you can use what I just showed you. This is staying dynamic. This is the truly dynamic power of the Crocoblock suite of tools. Now, Let's click on update and click on save, and we can come to the front end right here, and let's try to submit this form once again. But in this case, I don't want to do it inside of AppNiche. I want to come down here, select a very different project. Let's say we want to select Railway. Remember, we did this inside of the template level, so we expect that this will apply to all of the different projects, right? That's how templates work. Now we have the form inside of here. We want to type in the form details. So let's say that the person submitting this form, the name of the person is John Doe. And let's say the email of this person is me@tobisalami.com, and in the message, hey, how much does this project cost? The person doesn't know whether or not you're collecting that information, but just says, hey, how much does this project cost? Now, when a person asks a question like this, they expect you know the project that they submitted this form from. Sometimes they don't know, they don't care, they just send a message. But if you collected the location where this form was sent, such as the name of the project that was being viewed, you have the information already in your hand. Now click on send me a message, and it says, hey, I got your message, I will respond to you in a bit. And right here inside of what is collecting all of our emails, our outbound emails, I have a message from Fiction right here. Fiction sent a message to me, and it says new message from John Doe. And here they said, hey, how much is this project? And you see they were viewing Railway. So this person who owns the website knows, hey, these people were viewing Railway, and they're asking about the project of Railway. And in this particular case, I can very easily respond to them saying, hey, a project like Railway is going to cost you this much, and this is how much you need to pay me for starters. Does this make sense? I really do hope it makes sense, because this is foundational to your understanding of building excellent dynamic forms inside of WordPress. This is just really scratching the surface of what's really possible inside of form building when you're using JetFormBuilder in combination with the Crocoblock suite of tools. Before we round this out, let's just talk about one final aspect right here. You remember that we added some required fields, like 3 required fields inside of here. So let's assume that a person wants to type in their email and type in a message, but does not type in the name. Now, if the person clicks on send me a message, we see it says here, please fill out this field. So it doesn't allow you to submit a field that is absolutely required. Does that make sense? That's excellent. Also, inside of email, just to test out that email validation, if you come inside of here and let's say you forgot to type the @ and let's say you typed in the name correctly and come to send message, it says, hey, you should include an @ in the email address. Let's say you add the @ but you don't add the .com and you want to send this. Let's see if this works. I can click on send me a message and it says validation error. And what's the validation error? Well, of course, you can change the validation error here to say, hey, your email address is not formatted correctly. Of course, I showed you that when we were talking about the validation aspects of your JetForm. Do you remember that? Great. Excellent. Now let's just remind ourselves of the first post-submit action, which was to send the form fields into a record in the database in the back end. So let's just take a look at that. We come back to the back end and let's just open the dashboard right here, and we want to come inside of JetFormBuilder, but this time we want to focus on form records. Now, if you click on form records, you take note that you have a number of submissions. You have these 2 submissions, which were a success. You also have this submission, which we just tried, that had a validation error. Now, if we just click to view any of the submissions, we see we have the name, Tobi Salami, we have the email, we have the message. We also have some other additional information, such as the action that was triggered, such as send email, apart from the save form record, which we're currently viewing right now. We see on the right, we have some general values. You see IP address is not stored. We don't have the user agent stored. The user agent just simply means what browser the person was on and details about the person's device, right? So if you want to collect such data, you can, but in this case, we're not storing such data. And because it's not stored, we see it's not stored right here. We see the created date, which is the date and time in which this form was submitted. We can export this to CSV. We can also print it in PDF. And this is basically how the form records work. And just so you know, when you've collected all these form records, if you want to show this data that you collected in the front end, you definitely can do that with Jet Engine. You can come inside of Jet Engine and come inside of Query Builder, and you can create a new query. on which to base a listing. And the query this time will not be a post query, but a JetFormBuilder records query. And in this case, you can select the form that you want to fetch the records of, and you can fetch all of that data. If we click on preview results right here, we're going to see result count 3, which means that these are the number of items that are going to be returned inside of this kind of query. That is just a tip. It's really not the focus of this tutorial right now, and it's bordering on intermediate to advanced. But I just thought to show you that things can get really complicated if you so desire them to be. Does that make sense? And this right here brings us to the end of lesson 11. In lesson 12, I'm going to be answering all your questions. Yes, you. And lesson 12 is not just going to be a video, it's going to be a live demonstration. Remember, we're covering beginner concepts as it relates to building dynamic WordPress websites on WordPress, so keep that in mind. Bring your questions and I'm also going to come prepared to answer them all. The date and the time is what you see right here on your screen. Have you taken note of it? Keep the date in your calendar and I'm going to come back on that day and time. Smart people, my name is Tobi Salami, and I'm going to see you next week. Stay dynamic.